Okay, we are live. Gavin, thank you very much and welcome to Life Hacks with Mac. I'm looking forward to this conversation and sharing some very exciting, firstly, tips, but also your journey with people, because I'm going through a lot of conversations right now where, due to the current pandemic, people have pivoted to go online and they're getting lost. And I have a feeling that we may be able to answer some question, give them some guidance today. Yeah, thank you so much for taking your time to be on this call today. I know how busy you are, and that you're running a team all over the world. So much appreciated.
Thanks for having me, Mac. It's great to be on and catch up after all this time of isolation. If you're doing well. Yeah.
Indeed, so far so good. Still alive and kicking. Kids going mad, but that's all part of the current journey. So Gavin, to open up, I know a lot of people are going to come on here and not have a clue about the story. I know I've been following the story quite closely for 10 years as a Sendible, groupie, if you can want to call it that, purely because I love the story and where it's still heading, and I don't believe we've seen even half of it yet. But if you could share a little bit about your background and how you got to where you are and what the problem was you were trying to solve, etc.
Yeah, so I'm from South Africa, as you know, basically from Cape Town. Studied computer science at UCT, and then after apartheid, had to find a job in Cape Town. And basically back then they had a quota system in place, and I really struggled to find my first job. So at that stage, I wanted to create a company. I wanted to be my own boss, essentially, at that stage. So eventually I found a job. My dad pulled some strings. I got into Fashini in South Africa. And I worked there for about 4 years. But I remember the first week of working there, we had to write a postcard to our future selves, basically saying where we'd see ourselves in 10 years' time. And I knew after struggling to find a job for so long, I wanted to have my own company. So I knew in that first day, in 10 years' time, I'll have my own business. I'll be independent, and not have to fight for a job ever again. So that's kind of how my journey started. And then over the years, I was trying a few things in South Africa, on the side. I tried to launch this online, almost that's what, Top Table, or where you book restaurants online.
Yeah.
So I registered this domain called dineonline.co.za in South Africa, and I used to go to restaurants and try to get to put the menus on the website. I think I was charging like 100 Rand per menu, and it was so ahead of its time. I didn't see the value in having a web-based online restaurant review system.
And how things have changed. Wow.
So I shut that down after trying it out, and then I moved to the UK, really just explore the world more, travel a bit more. I'd been with my then girlfriend for about 5 years already at that time. Needed to just be on my own for a bit to decide if she was the one. So I moved to the UK, 2000, my then girlfriend behind. Did a bit of traveling, and then she came over a year later. So we were apart for a year, and then we eventually got married. But I remember just before we got married, my dad said to me, he needs a system that can help him send automated emails to his staff on their birthdays. So basically, just a little piece of software where you could plug in their birthdays and have it send out emails at the right time. So I thought, okay, I'll build the software. It's like a Windows-based console application. But I just build it, have it play, put email in there, put SMS in there. You could load your contacts in, and it would automatically send out the messages at that time. So I kept on building it and adding more things to it. So as Facebook became a thing, as Twitter became a thing, even things like Orkut, Friendster, MySpace, I plugged in all these different applications or services to be able to automate scheduling of any type of content, not just email and SMS. So it was still just a basic console desktop application that I was playing with. No one was using it, just myself and my dad back then. And then before we got married, I decided to put this website live, sendible.com, which was the name of the product. It was called Sendible because sending anything was possible. So you could make sending any type of content possible, and you could post out this content. So I put it live, and I wrote to a few blogging sites in about 2008, I think it was. I think it was like Mashable, Read Write Web, TechCrunch. Just quite easy to get some exposure back then.
Wow.
And they picked up the story. So they wrote the articles about how Sendible helped you automate your social media, your email, your SMS. And the business model was very different back then, which I'll explain if you like. But essentially, they wrote these articles. They got some exposure. It was a free product back then. And I got around 15,000, I think around 50 to 20,000 users very quickly on the platform using it for free. Early adopters, obviously. And that's kind of when the product first went live, 2008. And then, after that, just kept iterating on it, building it, just having fun.
So this is in the middle of a recession, and you...
That's when I launched it, during a recession. Yeah, it was crazy times. It was free, as I said. And the business model back then was actually that you would, so businesses could come on, and they could place contextual ads in the content. So you could get a free Sendible account and schedule your Facebook, your Twitter, whatever it is. But if you wrote about restaurants in London, for example, you might have a restaurant ad embedded in your post. So I was charging businesses to insert their ads into the users' posts who were using it for free.
So like Twitter does with advertising.
Almost like Twitter, but the actual ad was in your content. So if you posted a tweet, you'd have someone else's ad stuck at the bottom, kind of thing.
Okay.
So I was making, I made about $400 a month at that stage. Around 2009, I was on $400 a month, just from these businesses putting ads in. And then I started working for this consulting company. So I started working for them, and Sendible started really growing, even just through this basic model. And I had to register a business. So I approached my then employer to see, can I register a business? Is it okay? And they said, yeah, it's fine as long as you give us half your business. So give us 50% of the company, and we'll let you carry on working on Sendible on the side. You can keep your job. If not, you'll be fired. So that was like the pivotal moment.
Wow, tough ultimatum.
And back then I thought all startups give away equity, right? That's how it works. You give away a share of your business, and that's how you grow. That's how Zuckerberg did it. So I thought, okay, 50% isn't so bad. I can make a business from nothing. It's not making much money right now. So I ended up settling on 10%. They gave away 10% for free.
Wow.
They gave me some time off to work on Sendible on the side, but nothing else. There was no sort of cash injection, nothing else. And I kept working on it. It kept growing.
The benefit in kind.
Exactly. It kept growing, and they kept getting the 10%. So I reached a point where I just lost motivation. I couldn't keep giving them 10% of something that I was working on, just to keep my job, really. So I ended up quitting my job, and then getting lawyers involved to help get that 10% back. So this was 2010, and I quit my job, went all in on Sendible. Basically had to convert it into a business that could generate income for myself to live off. Otherwise I'd have to go back. So I had like 6 months of savings that I could live off. So I spent about 3 months just converting the app into a business tool, mainly for marketers to help get the content out there on social media, help schedule, to build things like workflow approvals into the content process. And the biggest thing I did was I created a white label version. So because it was just me, I needed to make money quickly to live off this product.
Yeah.
So I built a white label, which is basically a rebranded version of the product. And I got resellers to sell it for me. So that they could buy their reskinned version for $1,000, like a one-off fee, and then they could resell it. And then they could resell it to their clients, essentially.
Yeah. But ultimately, the platform sat on top of it. Yours was the platform, and they sat on top of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, in the first year of Sendible, I made like £4,000 the first year. But the second year, when I quit my job and went all in, I made over £100,000. The second year.
Wow, shows you
commitment. From quitting my job and getting the white label off the ground, and that's when I could live off it, basically. And that's when I could start growing the business. So that was about 2010, and that's kind of when it really kicked off. Yeah.
Wow. So you found a need. You went along with that. I think one of the key points for me right now is, I'm looking at a lot of people trying to do a lot of things, and I, myself included, I'm involved in various different projects. But one of the things I've noticed is, unless you make that commitment and you're all in and you go for it, instead of just kind of play with it, it never has the full potential. And that example that you've given us there, I mean, that's massive, from 4,000 to 100,000 1 year.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing was, I think for me, I guess the key motivator was the fact that these guys had taken 10% of the business for nothing. And I wanted to prove to them that I could make a business out of this thing. Like they didn't really care about the investment or the fact that they had 10%.
It's more the control.
Keeping me in my job at that company, essentially, at the time. So I was so motivated to prove to them that this could be a business and I could live off it. I think that was the key thing. And then like actually the one day after the first year, my accountant said to me, Gavin, how are you surviving on £4,000 a year? How are you doing that? How are you putting food on the table? And like we just didn't do anything. We just kind of cut back. Didn't go out much for that first year. My wife just invested in this with me. She said, Gavin, take as long as you need. We'll get through this.
So you had the
So I
support.
knew that I had her support. Yeah, I had her backing, and I don't think we realized how much runway we actually had. It was probably like 3 to 6 months of runway we had before I would have had to go back to finding a job. Yeah.
Sure. That is insane. So you've come so far since then. 10 years down the line, what are the key changes, over the last 10 years? I mean, you mentioned your business model's changed. And obviously social media has been so volatile with, various platforms working. I mean, in that time, we've lost MySpace. We've lost, well, tons of them.
Google Plus.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Yeah, it's actually
Google couldn't get it right, and you guys have been sailing through.
Yeah, I've seen everything, right? Actually, in the beginning, we spotted this major bug in Facebook in the early days. So basically, in the beginning, Facebook had this very kind of rough API before their current version, and because we were like building on their APIs back then, we had identified this glitch where basically you could use Sendible, but you can impersonate any brand on Sendible because Facebook's API was buggy. So you could come in there, you could kind of post as if you were Starbucks, for example. So your post would look like it came from Starbucks. So they had us on a call with the development team discussing how they could fix this bug on their side. So I've seen everything from that to where we are right now. And I think in the beginning, people just wanted to post the same content to multiple platforms. You just write once, distribute everywhere. Write for Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, it's the same post in the early days, but it doesn't work anymore that way. Like right now, your audience is so different. Each platform is so different. Instagram versus Facebook versus LinkedIn versus Twitter, it's all very different. So we've had to adapt the platform from being able to post one thing to multiple destinations to being able to craft unique versions of a post for each platform to get the most engagement. So to give you an example, like Instagram, obviously links don't work. It's mainly images and videos.
Yeah.
So you might have a topic or a piece of content that you want to make work on each platform. But if you didn't have Sendible, you'd have to kind of copy and you have to kind of create each one uniquely for each platform.
Yep.
For Sendible now, we have a feature called Smart Posts where you can write the key kind of message, but then you can craft a unique version for each platform in one sort of flow. So you use our compose box, you draft your post, but you can customize it for Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. And we'll advise you on what the right sort of image ratios are, the right video, that kind of thing. Because, like, for example, Instagram's video length is like 30 seconds, right? Whereas LinkedIn is much longer. So you have to know that you have to kind of customize each post for each platform for it to work. And that's been the biggest change over the last 10 years, I think. That each audience is different, each platform is different. Yeah.
So let me ask you a question on that, because there'll be people watching this who have got social media savvy. They use different platforms, so they'll understand what you're saying when it comes to being able to be bespoke for each channel. But there'll be new people that are sitting on here who are trying to figure out Facebook. They're trying to figure out LinkedIn. They're trying to figure out Instagram and all the rest of it. And how does Sendible help those people understand what they're doing? So if they're kind of a first time, I'm a new business. I'm spending tons of hours going on Facebook and getting lost on the scroll, and then going on LinkedIn, and then I'm on there, and then I see somebody's post, and then by the time I look again, I've spent 3-4 hours outside of my business instead of in my business.
Yeah.
How does it help those people to understand what is needed to make sure, is it that clear and easy for people to go onto Sendible and go, oh, okay, so I need to do this for LinkedIn, I need to do this for Instagram, as an example?
So we're, I guess at the moment, Sendible can do everything. Like it can do a lot of things, but it comes down to you doing the right things, doing things the right way. So we're trying to educate our customers to focus more on storytelling. That's the key thing that they won't change in the long term, right? If you can become a good storyteller, you'll be able to cut through the noise. So kind of like what you were saying about endless scrolling, being distracted. That's the same for your audience, right? Your audience is in the feed, distracted, jumping around. It's a push notification and moving to something else. You have to get their attention. And people's attention spans are shrinking, right? Right now, it's like down to something like 12 seconds. Sorry, from 12 seconds in 2000 to 8 seconds right now. That's
Wow.
the average human attention span. And with so much content being created on the social channels, it's really hard to get someone's attention. And in the past, as I was saying about how things have changed, people would share links and try direct traffic back to your websites. That stuff doesn't work anymore. Traffic to websites, setting things, driving traffic away from the channels, it just doesn't work anymore because algorithms are designed to keep you in the feed. Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter are designed to keep you scrolling.
Massively.
That's how it works.
Yeah.
If you have a link, you're taking someone out of the feed that goes against what they want you to be doing, the algorithms. So it's all about less posting of links, more imagery, more really good storytelling content, visual storytelling, video, that kind of thing is all good. And people have learned to ignore all things that are fake, right? We had fake news. The issue with fake news was a big deal.
Stole a lot of it.
Influencers are fake. People being paid to post things. People are spotting that stuff now. Overly polished content on Instagram affecting mental health. People are getting sick of that stuff. So really, social media is going back to what it was designed to do in the beginning, which is just connect people on a human to human sort of level. So we're trying to preach the whole thing of storytelling. Where I'll continue about so basically the algorithms are trying to keep you in the newsfeed, but most people think that you should try direct them back to your website, try post links, that kind of thing. But links don't work. Links are going to get you pushed down the newsfeed priority list. So the key really is to share authentic stories about your experiences. So people care less about how great your product or service is, but more about what you can teach them or show them or share with them. So things like sharing your personal experiences, having overcome a challenge is really valuable in social media. So if you can show that you're vulnerable in a way, get them to buy into your, I guess the first couple of lines in your post are the attention grabbers.
Yeah.
You show vulnerability and then you kind of go into how you've overcome that problem through your post, which I can show you a bit later. But that's kind of what I've been doing, what we're trying to preach to our customers. Because social media is really for brand building. It's not for selling anymore. And the reason I say sales and ads don't work on social media is because the ads go against the algorithms, right? So the algorithms are designed to keep you in the feed. Ads are pushing you away from the feed. It just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense.
So hold on. So let me ask you a question there, because I'm sure there are people sitting and who will ask this question, because I know I've been sucked into this where Facebook goes, oh, boost your post, and I go and boost my post, but I'm thinking, hold on, I want to capture that audience. I want them to go into my website, go into my funnel, but actually by boosting that post, I'm just paying Facebook to suppress their own post.
No, so people will see your post, right? But when they click, they won't stay on your website for very long because they're programmed to kind of go back to the newsfeed. That's the issue, right? So you have to figure out a way to capture them when they get to your website, which is getting much harder to do because people are conditioned to scroll and skim and jump around. So that's why video works a lot better. So if you boost video, and then remarket to those people who've seen your videos on Facebook ads, that's where it can work. So less about pushing them away, remarket to them, build the trust first, and then eventually when they trust you, they'll click the links and actually concentrate on your website, like what it says.
So, I mean, that's a really important point. And it's like kind of the physical world, because people are going, and I'm seeing a lot of this where people are on various social media platforms and they, hey, this is what I am, buy from me, here's the link. And it's straight in. Yeah. And there's no, the dating process has gone out the window, the whole kind of foreplay, the relationship building as such. Now if I just knocked on somebody's door, and I've done a lot of door knocking in my life with, direct sales, but if I just knocked on the door and went, hey, I've got this product, do you want to buy it? You're just going to get doors in your face all day. Yes, you might get a small percentage that are desperate at that point in time. Yeah. But you're not going to have repeat business.
That's how storytelling works, right? So if you use storytelling to build an audience, they're kind of rooting for you. So you're positioning them like as the hero. Yes, it's kind of like you're going on this journey you're the hero of the story. They're kind of rooting for you to be successful because they're buying into your story essentially. So when you're ready to actually sell them, they've already bought into you and they trust you already. So storytelling builds trust.
Yeah,
Can you see my screen?
I can. Two personal examples.
Okay, yeah, cool. So let me show you how I do this, right? So it's a proper storytelling technique, which I use on LinkedIn. So as I was saying about the like 2-line attention grabber where you pose a problem, is that big enough? Can you see it on your
Yeah,
screen? Okay.
yeah,
So in the beginning, I'll say something that kind of makes me seem vulnerable. So I have a confession to make. When Sendible was just me, I created a fake employee called Lisa.
yeah,
So very honest, very authentic, very human. Then
yeah.
you elaborate on that first sort of problem. So I used to use we instead of me. In fact, I use we a lot. That's because I really didn't think any customer would take a one-man company seriously. We need
Yeah.
to see bigger. So you go on the storytelling thing, you build up that whole thing. And then, but over the years, I've learned that customers want to back an underdog. They want the real story.
Yeah.
It's time to stop being what you think people expect you to be and just be you. And then there's a CTA. So essentially, the structure of a story is a problem. You aggravate the problem, you elaborate. You have an inciting incident, like a but. It's always like a but, and then like a therefore, and then a call to action. And because I was open and honest, I got like 100 engagements on this and almost 9,000 views.
Wow.
That's one example. And then another one is a similar thing. You pose a problem. So shortly after starting Sendible, I accidentally gave away a large percentage to investors for free, as I said just now to you. I lost motivation, had pretty much given up. And then but, again, you use the but. That's like the key thing here, where you kind of go into the detail of why you changed or the inciting incident. But Martine, that's my wife, believed in me. She convinced me to spend all our savings to buy back the equity and quit my job. At 6 months to generate enough revenue to support me before we were broke. And then the therefore is like the so for 6 months, there's nothing else. We work flat out, 16 hours a day. And then carry on, and then you have a lesson, a takeaway for the audience, right? So normally how I structure them is I have my story plus a takeaway for the audience to kind of walk away with. So you can see this one got over 10,000 views, 174
Wow.
engagements. And how I know it's working is because of messages like this, right? So this is a comment I got on one of these posts that I use where I use storytelling. This is an old customer of ours. He said, "By the way, I love how active you've been on LinkedIn. You're inspiring me to pay more attention again. Thank you." So it shows how storytelling
As engaging.
generates attention for you.
Yeah.
And then one more just to show you from Carsten Plaza. You said something to me. You sent me a message. You said, "I don't know, but seeing the human face behind the tool I use makes me want to use it so much more," if that makes sense. So you build trust by being authentic and human. And that's my key sort of advice to you. If you're using social media, think of something that you've overcome recently, like a challenge, a problem, and try to think of a solution that you discovered yourself, and then work backwards from the solution to create a story, essentially. That's my process.
And I mean, you've just gone back to the old adage of people buy from people. And I think especially now in the current world that we're in, we've moved, over the last 6 weeks, everybody's pivoted online and they're using platforms like Zoom, etc. But I don't know if you found the same, but it's become more about the connection, about the personal, seeing people, eye to eye. And yes, we're missing the physical connection in the world right now, but that storytelling it's part of, people are reaching out. They want to engage, but they want, like you say, it's the hero in the story or the authentic person. And we all get that feeling when somebody tells a story, and we just disconnect straight away because and we know it's not being authentic. So, what you've just shared in the last 3 minutes is like, it's pretty much game-changing stuff for a lot of people. So thank you for actually showing us structure and process.
I think just to add to what you're saying now, so I think this is why right now is really exciting, as you said, about building connection.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all living the hero's journey right now. We're all facing challenges in this new world.
Yeah.
And people are looking for someone they can get behind, someone that can be a guide to them, right? So if you can share your journey as you're dealing with challenges, as you're learning how this new world is going to work or evolve, you can build an audience to follow you and kind of come along with you on that ride, because you can guide them as to how to overcome it. So one personal example, I have my own podcast. I'm sharing how we're dealing with COVID-19 at Sendible.
Okay.
behind the scenes, like presentations I'm giving to the staff, how I've been dealing with the issue myself, like the stress.
Is that a link we can share afterwards in the feed?
I can give you a link afterwards. Yeah, you guys can
Perfect.
subscribe. And I'm doing more video now as well. So similar to you, I'm doing YouTube now because people want to
Yeah.
see a face. So I'm doing the podcast on YouTube, and really just trying to break down that barrier to show what's actually going on behind the scenes. And just by being open, being the more human CEO, people want to go along with you on that ride. So even actually, I was at a conference in San Diego, a social media conference in March, and we had this big sort of meetup for customers. And these customers came to us and they said, "Gavin, you like to ask you like famous because they've heard the podcast, they've seen some of our stats, some of our vlogs on YouTube, and like they actually felt like I was famous, which is so weird." Because they'd followed the story, right? They've been part of the story. They've been hearing my voice in the podcast, and they felt like they knew me already. And that's what you can do with storytelling. You can break down that barrier and really let people into your life behind the scenes, which is interesting. Yeah.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts on storytelling versus contributor? Because I believe they're the same thing, or the one enforces the other. Because what I find is online, especially on social media, people that are telling a story and being authentic, are they really bringing value to the world as such? Which is why I have this channel, is to bring value to people. But there are a lot of people who will tell a story without having any contribution, and there's no, and that's where you can sense there's no authenticity in it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm telling you this because I want to go through the process, because I've been told to go through a process, and I want to connect those two.
I think the value comes from your personal experience, right? The value is in your personal experience. You've had a unique challenge that you've had to overcome. No one else has had that same experience as you.
Yeah.
So if you can find those experiences, those problems, and make them your own, that's when it becomes authentic. But if you're just telling a generic story about someone else, it's never going to sound as powerful as if it's yourself actually having experienced that.
You've mentioned generic as well, and I want to touch on that because it's very easy for people. And another point that you made was nobody else has been through that experience. There are people that will look at a process, so similar to what you've just outlined, and they'll go out and they'll follow a process and tell a story, and they'll be very generic because they want to cast that wide net, as opposed to really being authentic and telling that from their personal experience. So they might embellish a little bit by trying to add stuff that they think people will relate to, as opposed to what people do. How do you differentiate?
That's a good point. So I'll share my process, how I've come to this whole thing. So I was trying to obviously build an audience on social media for a long time, and I would just automate posts, right? So you just, back in the day, you'd automate posts. But then I went to this conference, and they're preaching about social media storytelling and everything, and that's what the future is. That's what will outlast any changes in technology or anything else. It's all storytelling, which is why Netflix is so popular. Netflix is just stories. It's the same thing. But people don't know that storytelling is what gets people's attention. It's all the shows you love on Netflix. That's why you watch them, because of the stories they tell.
Yeah.
So a story will never be as powerful if it's not coming from yourself. I think. So my process was to come up with the values at Sendible. So we have like 4 core values, and the way I come up with content is I'll create pillars of the values. So like one value is curiosity, like learning, curiosity. So I'll come up with content that's around learnings, like things we've done at Sendible, how we've had a challenge in a particular technology problem and how we've overcome it, for example. Or even just something like we have a book club at Sendible. I'll share that we've launched a book club, and that links back to our value. And I'll try to think of just ideas of things we've done that are linked to a particular value. So it's never going to be embellishing on a story. It's always going to be something I've experienced or we've experienced as a company. So
Keeping it real.
Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it, but it's more about finding your personal challenges. Everyone has challenges. Even if it's really tough, the more tough it is, the better it is for you to kind of build that trust. But storytelling is about building trust ultimately. you know.
Absolutely. And that perfectly kind of leads into the next question, which I know is in the bullet points for people to go and find as well. But finding content, what's the structure? What is the best way to find relevant content and then match your experience to that to tell the story?
Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do, right? So because we deal mainly with social media agencies, the biggest challenge is how to source stories from their clients. Like, how do you get them to kind of open up, share their ideas? So we created this deck of storytelling cue cards, which I think we'll link in the show notes afterwards.
Brilliant.
But essentially, let me take you through it. It's a process of, it's got like instructions. You can see like the white doesn't work, but it's a whole process of kind of crafting a story. We start with the mission and values. So what's the mission and the values of the particular client or of yourself even?
Okay.
You kind of get those mission and values sorted out. So like, what do you want to achieve? Why are you doing what you do? What drives how you do those things? Like, what are the values that you live by? And then once you have, so I guess, from this, you have some ideas of content.
Yeah.
And then you can decide on what plots to use. So there are essentially only 7 storytelling plots, right? There's overcoming the monster, which is like David versus Goliath. There's a rebirth, where you're kind of starting over, you're finding a new way. Maybe you've gone from one career to another, and you share that story. There's a story of quest. So you go on a mission from point A to B, and you kind of discover how you've evolved over that period. And obviously many more, but the key one is the hero's journey. That's the one that most Hollywood movies use, where you're a hero, you're trying to get to some goal. You have some guy that's helped you that kind of launch that journey. But you have to overcome challenges to get there. And each challenge is a self-discovery process. So these cards will help you discover content ideas that'll help you kind of craft that narrative. So I might ask you a question.
Brilliant.
Actually. Let me ask you a question. You can answer this one.
Oh, put me on the spot.
This is for you, Mac. Okay. Describe a time when you did something that was completely outside of your comfort zone, and what drove you to take it on.
That's a pretty easy one for me, because this whole life hacks thing. I was very opposed to being in front of the screen or in front of the camera. And at the same time, I had people saying, we need help with various things. And the only way to do that is either me do it or somebody else. But I knew if somebody else did it, they weren't going to do it, and they weren't going to achieve what I wanted to achieve out of it. They weren't going to ask the right questions. They weren't going to get the right people. But I also knew it was one of my biggest obstacles to really achieving what I want to do. I do business coaching, and I run my own company. So in order to do that, I needed to step out of my comfort zone, and that was very, very painful. So, but then the moment I did the first one, and everything, it was just so worth it. But building up to that was, painful process, but mentally, because the obstacle's never as big as it seems.
Did you ever share a story on social media? Have you shared that?
No. So
because there was something I did something similar. My story was like with the podcast, right? I launched it like last August, because I was going to give it to someone else to do. Like, someone else could tell Sendible's story.
Yeah.
For it to be authentic, it had to be me sharing my obstacles along the way.
Yeah.
I hate being on camera and that kind of thing as well. I hate it. So I thought I have to just get outside my comfort zone, just try this thing, record a podcast, see how it feels, keep going. And I reached a point where I was going to, only once I had 1,000 downloads would I continue. So if I could get to 1,000 downloads, I would then move on and kind of keep doing it. So instead of just keeping it to myself, I wrote a post on LinkedIn about it. Like how, I hate being on camera. It's a kind of a big mindset change for myself. And I told the audience that I want to try reach 1,000 downloads. Can you help me get to 1,000 downloads? And from then, they all started sharing my podcast because they bought into the story. So if you can be open and honest, you can build an audience by just bringing them on the journey with you, by sharing your obstacles, your challenges. They'll want to help you, essentially, because you're making them the hero. Does it make sense? So if you're struggling,
absolutely,
they can be the hero and help you succeed, essentially.
So, and this is one of the things that I'm learning through a lot of the coaching and stuff that I'm doing. that the world out there, and then one of the reasons I didn't want to jump on in front of the camera was the fear of, well, what are people going to say? What is he even doing? Look at the background. And I clearly know I need to get a green screen so that I can make this a little bit more effective. I know what the faults are, but what I found was people actually, if you ask for help and you share that vulnerability, actually there are a lot of people out in the world that are suffering and going through the same challenges, not necessarily suffering, but going through the same challenges, and maybe have already overcome that and willing to help. And I've had people that have reached out to me to try and help on things that I was like, okay, where'd that come from? Similar to a story I mentioned earlier, how one of these videos is, helped me introduce somebody else to one of the key contacts that they've been looking for. And, thank you for taking me out of my comfort zone there, but I think I know what I need to do as well. But that shows you how effective those cards are. So carry on with that.
It's a bunch of questions, and you can essentially go through the process of crafting a story. So every one of the questions could be a story, but it helps you structure them as well. So essentially, I mean, it's mainly for agencies or brands to help come up with content ideas. There are many others I could ask you, but maybe I'll send you a pack. You can maybe use them in your interviews in the future. But
that sounds like a great idea.
So we actually did one. We recorded a session with our plumber actually a couple of weeks ago to test these cards out.
No,
so a plumber. So I wanted to show how anyone can tell a story, right? Even if you're a plumber, you can tell your story. You can find some stories to tell. So we've recorded the video now. We're going to post that on YouTube probably the next week or so.
Oh, please share that with us.
So many content ideas, so many stories that he brought up. One thing he said was really interesting. He said that as a kid, he used to go to car boot sales with his family. And the one catalyst that taught him about business was that they would have their car boot sort of stand at this car boot sale. And they would go to the other stands and buy things from the other sellers and then resell them for a higher price at their stand. Which is really interesting. So that's how he learned about business, value, creating value from nothing is what he learned. So that's the one lesson that he shared. That could be another social media post. But these things just keep coming up. You get all this content, all these ideas from people's past, from their childhood. And they're all linked to where you are now, really. So your journey from the past shapes who you've become now, essentially.
Absolutely.
So you can always tie back your experiences as a child to where you are now. And that's also stories, it's amazing stories. And yeah.
Wow. Okay. So firstly, we need to get some of those cards. I will share where people can get those cards from yourself as well, because I'm working with a lot of people right now that they're running their own businesses, but as you know, when you're a startup, you are the marketing team, you are the sales team, you're everything.
Yeah.
And if this, I think that you've clearly pointed out how simple the tool is, but how effective that can be with trying to simplify it. It's one less thing to think about, but it guides you by the looks of it, quite simply.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the way I use Sendible personally is I'll block out, let's say, some time on a Monday, and I'll write some content. I'll get some stories going in my mind or on a like notepad sort of app or something. And then I'll take those and I'll kind of customize them for each platform, and then I'll schedule them in Sendible. So that's kind of how it works. I'll just spend some time one day a week getting those ideas going, and then schedule them out to the rest of the week. So all my channels are up to date. So I think that's the best advice I would give if they do want to subscribe to Sendible or try it out. We are offering some free time for those who are struggling with COVID-19 right now. So I can share the link to that sign up form as well. We're giving free time until July to those who need it. So I can share that link afterwards too. Yeah.
Excellent stuff. So I think we've got some great stuff to put together there. I mean, we've got content direction now, which is a difficult one, but you seem to have streamlined and made that quite easy. Well, not necessarily easy, but you've given it a structure, which makes it a lot easier to work with. People using your platform, let me ask you this question, because I want to come on to another thing, but I've got to get this one out of the way. So why use Sendible compared to anything else that's out there?
Yeah, how are we different, I guess, is the
Yeah.
key. So we're focused on helping craft authentic content for social media. So there might be other platforms, like Hootsuite is another one that you might want to use. But at Sendible, we're really focused on helping you craft quality content for your audience, not just scheduling out multiple posts and that kind of thing. So we're building tools to help you craft your stories, like what I was showing you now. We're on a mission to help bring your story to life on social media, essentially, because social media is the best storytelling platform there is right now. So we have obviously all the tools in place to help you get your message out, get your story told. But we're also moving in the direction of helping you plan your content in a way that drives a reaction from your audience. That's the next phase now, to help with that planning piece.
Okay.
Which I can't share about on this episode, but hopefully in the
For
future
sure.
I can show you. But we're working on a brand new platform that'll help with that problem. Yeah.
Wow, that's exciting stuff. So, would you be able to share, not necessarily now, but maybe afterwards, where people can go so that they, if they want to have a demo of Sendible and have a look at how it all works and what the platform does? I'm assuming you'll have a link where people can go to try and arrange that.
Yeah, best thing would be just to sign up, start a trial. So if you go to our website, sendible.com.
Yeah.
And obviously there's a link which I just mentioned about the COVID-19 free access, which I'll share afterwards. But essentially start a trial. There's always someone there to help you. So if you get stuck, there's a live chat, plenty of videos you can watch. But the best way to learn is just to get stuck in there and get started. Connect your social profiles. I would recommend, connecting at least Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter to start off with. And then just start crafting your post, start scheduling some content. It's very simple to get started. That's probably the best way. Just go in there, get set up, start scheduling your content, and then start allocating time in the week to start thinking of what content you want to post. That's related to your personal brand. Yeah.
Excellent. I know I've been using your platform now for 10 years, and a couple of my profiles have become almost synonymous with certain areas where I've done over 100,000 posts in one platform where over 10 years, and I've probably been posting while we've been talking. And not knowing about it, because there's so many additional tools that I've discovered. And like you say, that for me, the best way has been to literally go and play and discover, and finding all these tools that you can automate certain bits as well, so you can add additional content. So the tools are just endless on there. So I would urge anybody to go and play. But right now, this crisis is it's got a lot of people thinking about what's happening, what to do. Why is now the best time to build an audience?
Kind of like what I said earlier, where people are looking for answers. So when this whole thing kicked off, I had lots of business owners contacting me for advice. Like, what should they do? Like, businesses that were going from, actually had someone who worked, he works at a market, essentially, and the market was shut down. And he said, like, how can he move his business online? He basically does framing, like framing of photographs and art. What can he do to take his business online now? Like, how's he going to solve that problem? So I said that the world's changing. You have to build an audience. You have to kind of give away something for free. You can't expect people to pay right now.
Yeah.
So I suggested doing like art classes for kids. Let them do some arts now while they're isolated. When this is over, they can use his services to frame the art, essentially. So that was one business owner. Had someone else. It was like a similar problem. Like, how can he take his business online? Can I give him ideas? Can I help him? So there's your reason, right? You have people who are in need, who need a guide. And if you can scale that a bit, if you can kind of share your experience as you go through it, you'll have an audience. That's how it's going to work, right? If you can share every step of the way how you've overcome your own challenges. Like I've shared, like in the beginning when COVID-19 hit and everyone was isolated, we had to shut down the office. I shared how I felt, like how I just froze. I had never dealt with this before. Like obviously as a founder or a CEO, I never dealt with these kinds of situations. I saw the news was like depressing, losing jobs, that kind of thing. So I went through a process of freezing before I communicated to the company what we were going to do, and then I had a strategy from there. So I've shared that entire journey online, and that's built an audience just by being transparent and honest and sharing what I'm going through. They want to see what happens next, how we solve the next problem. So because people are scared right now and fearful, now is a really good time to be there for them and be that guide, be that person. Yeah.
Okay. And I can see that because, it's all about leadership right now as well. And building an audience. People are looking for leaders. And I look at the story you've been telling online, and how, because you've been authentic and you're talking about stuff that people can relate to, or because you're sharing your pain in going through all these things, it's making people connect on a whole different level. Yeah. Where I think in the last 6 weeks we've seen social media. I think the type of posts have massively changed over the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Totally.
Because prior to that, I don't know about you, but it was like every man in his car, sharing their, like, and I kept thinking, surely you shouldn't be driving and recording your video, but hey, that's the thing. So that's one thing I haven't seen in about 8 weeks, which is really cool. I have seen people stationary in their car do that, but the messaging has become very storytelling, audience, authenticity, connectivity. I mean, what's been the biggest lesson for you over the last kind of 6 to 8 weeks?
I think this is why social media is so powerful, though. I guess another reason is that people have stopped their advertising. So because there are fewer ads getting in the feed right now, it's a good time to be on social media and be authentic.
Yeah.
I think the cost of an ad is like so much lower now than it was on Facebook, for example. So it's a good time to advertise if you can be authentic, which is quite difficult. So if you can advertise your podcast, for example, your show, that's a good thing to do right now. You aren't trying to drive a sale; you're just trying to build the audience.
Yeah.
Pretty cheap at the moment. But the one thing we did as a company was I wanted to launch weekly workshops for our customers where we can share tips and tricks for business owners, agency owners, that kind of thing. So we started getting guests on, like yourself, every week, every Wednesday we do it. Just a very informal workshop where someone will share something for maybe 5-10 minutes. And then you have Q&A.
Okay.
So our customers could come on there and ask any questions about any problems they've had, which has really been helpful because they then trust the brand, essentially, because we're helping them. Even though certain topics aren't relevant for that week, they know they'll learn something the following week. So we keep on changing the topics, changing the speakers, that kind of thing has been a big thing for us. And then building community is another thing. People are looking for a community where they can belong, they can ask questions, they can be part of something. So we launched our community. Our community is very different, very authentic. Again, back on this whole sort of theme. Most communities are run by the companies. So if you look at a Salesforce community, it's run by Salesforce. Our community is run by our customers. So we kicked off the community with a few customers. They kind of the leads of the community. They'll share their experiences, and our other customers get on in the community. They share their stuff. They talk to the leaders, and we just get in there with questions. So we might just prompt conversations, but our community is run by our customers. So it's very authentic, very trusting, and they can belong.
It sounds so simple, but it's not something that a lot of people do. I mean, ultimately, your customers are. That's why we're in business. But how do you get your customers to engage? And how did you get your customers to be in that position where, hey, you know what, you lead the way, you come and participate, you ask questions? How would a company go about doing that?
So first of all, the way I launched it was I explained that unlike other companies that are trying to take advantage of you right now, while you aren't going to spend any money with community.
How you got your customers, community,
So we basically launched on LinkedIn. Well, I wrote a post on LinkedIn about how we're different, how we're more authentic. So again, linking it back to our values, being authentic, being human, and explaining the fact that most communities are trying to get you to be part of it so they can sell to you afterwards. So Salesforce will get you in there so they can sell to you when this is over. They have you in their community. Whereas our approach is very different. So I made that very open and honest about how we're approaching it. So my approach is always to find something different. Try to find how most people are doing it, but do it slightly differently, and then make that a reason to join our community as opposed to someone else's, essentially. So I made that a big angle when we launched this thing. And then we basically reached out to our top sort of advocates and got them to be part of it. We had a Zoom call with them, explained that they were selected to be leaders of the community, that they can promote their businesses too every now and then. They can share their experiences, get exposure. They can build their credibility, their audience. But all they have to do is post once a week. So we'll get our customers to post something once a week. And every week, every day is themed to something different. So you might have like Tuesday tips with like Tip Tuesdays or something. Or whatever it is, like, have your wins every Friday. What's your win of the week kind of thing. So they'll prompt the conversations, but it's from them, not us. We'll just sponsor the community. So it says sponsored by Sendible, but they'll lead the engagement most of the time. And
so
because they have
your
to
customers
post,
a voice, this is fantastic.
yeah, so we're trying to position them as the hero again. So take our top customers, make them the hero, let them build their credibility in the community, and we'll just be there to support them, essentially. Yeah.
Getting back to why we are in business, it's all about the clients. It's all about the customer. Without them, everything else would just be a nice thing on the shelf.
I think back to why we're different. You asked, well, how Sendible is different
Yeah.
To most other sort of tech social media companies.
All about
the main
the customer.
reason is because we bootstrapped, right? I would say being bootstrapped is a big reason because we have to listen to our customers. Like they pay our bills, they pay our salaries. So everything we do is for our customers, really. As long as we can make them successful, then we'll keep growing. Whereas those bigger companies that have taken VC investments are working for the fund. They're working for the investors to make those people rich,
So it's all about lean and mean and not necessarily full value.
So we're trying to make our customers successful so they keep paying us, essentially. Simple, old school business.
Which is win-win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. It is so nice to see companies still have a heart, and clearly Sendible has more than just a heart. It's the whole community around it, and I'm looking forward to see what the next 10 years hold. I mean, when you say bootstrapped and you're 10 years in, or 11 years, no?
11, yeah, it's gone on 11 years. Yeah, it's crazy.
And I mean, I'm sure that's another interview, another conversation about how did you survive 11 years without relying on, getting sucked into that let's list the company, let's get investors. And
actually, I was on a call with another founder he's raising money now. He asked how I can keep going for 11 years. Like, don't I want to sell the company? And I said, I have obviously thought about it, and I sell a company and start something else.
Yeah, for sure.
The thing is when you invest in a company for 10 years, you actually build a brand.
Yeah.
And that brand gives you leverage. So I could easily build another product using the Sendible name, but I wouldn't have to start from scratch, essentially.
Yeah.
So if you
build yourself a stage,
if you play the long game, you actually have something of value, like a brand that's valuable, that can be pivoted at any time. So that's the key, building a brand for the long term. Yeah.
So very much on the Elon Musk stage. I like that.
Probably not. I think he's he's going a bit crazy at the moment.
Oh well, yeah, no, that's yeah. But, we could have a whole other conversation. I mean, he has some very bizarre out there thinking. So I know there were a couple of other things, and I'm just conscious of time as well. But a couple of other things that you mentioned. One was the why social advertising, as we know it, will be dead by 2025. That kind of got me. I was like, what? So I have to get that one answered.
Yeah, so how to answer that one? So there's a trend of ad blockers. Everyone's installing ad blockers. People are getting better at spotting what's fake. So when I see an ad in the newsfeed, I just filter it out automatically. My eyes just skim over it. I think people are getting better at spotting what's real and what's authentic, what's fake, that kind of thing. And as I said earlier, the algorithms are trying to keep you in the newsfeed, but the ads are trying to take you away from the newsfeed. So for you to get any sort of return, it's getting much harder. Because if they leave the newsfeed to go to, so people don't go to social media to buy things, right? They go there to be aware of things potentially. So it's more of an awareness channel. So I think the way that we know ads as they are today will be obsolete in 2025. One other reason is that I think it's more important to build brand and to try to drive a quick sale, whether it be on social media or anywhere else. Things like Alexa, for example. So obviously Google search, that kind of thing on a voice activated device. You're gonna say, where's the top plumber in in Bournemouth, for example.
Yeah.
One response, one result will come up, right? For you to be known, you have to build a brand. You have to say, I want my plumber Joe Blogs. Call Joe Blogs. That's how it should be. So it's about building a brand that you know of, that you recognize is the key. And advertising, because it's like a low trust sort of angle, you don't have to trust the audience yet. The way you advertise on social media has to be very different. As I said, you have to build the audience, build their trust, and then show them something that they might buy from you. And it's less about kind of just sending traffic to your website like it used to be. So it's more about like building the audience through storytelling, as I said, remarket to them on Facebook and then they'll buy from you. But it's a long-term game. And because algorithms don't work anymore for advertising, I just think it's throwing money at a wall and hoping it sticks. I don't think it's going to work for the long term.
So, working with somebody like Sendible as an example, I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these guys, they keep changing their processes and their algorithms.
Yeah.
I'm assuming the biggest challenge of being an individual, posting on multiple platforms, and maybe even getting lost in the scroll, as we do, because our attention goes along with whatever grabs it at the time. Sendible is having to stay ahead. Like, how do you stay ahead? Like, you're obviously in constant contact and have people in your team that are trying to make sure that they understand that, which really, anybody using Sendible gives them the edge over trying to, if you're still posting like you were a year ago on Facebook or 2 years ago on Facebook, you're not getting the same impact now. So
yeah, that's a challenge, right? We've actually had to install. We've actually created like a bot now that scrapes all the different third-party API websites.
Yep.
So we'll check Facebook's API documentation and see if there are any changes, and then we'll then get notified on Slack, so we can kind of make those changes. But we're on like regular calls with LinkedIn, for example, Facebook, Twitter as well, to discuss upcoming changes. So they're actually seeking our feedback on API updates as well. So we tend to know what's coming. Yeah, we tend to meet with Facebook at least once a quarter, and Instagram and LinkedIn as well, where we're able to give feedback on their roadmap. So they'll kind of share what they're working on. They'll ask us what we need, what our customers need, because they want to support small businesses as well. So our customers essentially. So we are able to give them feedback. Don't know where it goes sometimes, but it does help. I think a little bit. But yeah, I think for us, we have to keep up to date with all the changes all the time.
So using your platform gives people a massive edge, just because of the fact that.
So in the past, we used to support everything. Yeah. I think we have a lag now.
Challenges we've had on the internet. So
this actually happened to us. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, we're all good.
There was an issue where we had this high-profile webinar guest on, and these things happened during the webinar where actually when we went on the webinar with him, he couldn't hear us.
Wow.
So he had to go. So we had to call him on his mobile phone to try to speak to him during the webinar. Like he was going off on a tangent or something, and no one could hear him. All sorts of issues. So in the video, you see him going off in the background on the phone, speaking to us, then coming back on. But we obviously shared the flaws, right? It's just standard, being authentic again, and people love that stuff. But
yeah, and it's mad because I'm seeing a lot of people rant and rave online at the moment. A lot of hate going out to some of the service providers.
Yeah.
But they weren't built to have millions of people working from home. So it's an interesting challenge that we all face.
Yeah.
Indeed. And then you mentioned already the social media influencers. Because that's a big, that used to be a a massive world where anybody who's got lots of followers is now, they can make or break a business.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned earlier that people see through the not necessarily, there's not necessarily that authenticity. And what were your thoughts on that?
So an influencer is anyone that can influence an audience, right? It's anyone that has some sort of influence over an audience.
Yeah.
The influencers that you're probably thinking of, the ones who are paid to post to their audience of like 1 million people or 1 billion, whatever it is, 100 million people, those ones don't work anymore. I don't believe they work. Often they'll have hashtag ad next to it anyway, because they're being paid to post it out. So I think that type of influencer it's no longer trustworthy. It won't work for the long. People can see through it, basically. But the influencers that will still work are your customers and your employees. So customers in particular, the ones who want to be sharing about your product, those are the ones that you should be reaching out to and using them as advocates. So I think influence is still valuable, but if it's done the right way, that's key. Yeah.
So, I'm hearing this whole kind of message come through of the influencers being, for me, I guess the word trustworthy is the word that comes out. Trustworthy and authentic, because the days of I have 1,000 followers or 10,000 or 1 million or 10 million followers, go buy this T-shirt is, there've been these interesting stories of influencers who promote a product that they're vegan, but they're promoting a meat product because somebody wants them to have their face on there. But so they're not being authentic to themselves. And that, is going to be filtered out effectively, which is great news for everybody, I think.
So the way we do, I'll explain how we do it at Sendible. So we survey our customers. So we have like an in-app NPS sort of survey, Net Promoter Score. And the ones that are the happiest we'll reach out to, and we'll see if they're willing to write us a review, potentially. So that's how we kind of tend to do it. So even having a review is some influence. And the ones who write the reviews are normally, they'll do it because they love Sendible so much that they'll write a review for us. And then from there, we might be able to use that review as a testimonial, or maybe get them on an interview to talk about what they said about Sendible. That's influence, right? That's more powerful than someone being paid to talk about something that they have never used before. They've actually got first-hand experience, Yeah.
Absolutely. And I just want to give you a big shout out, because I've been using your system for 10 years, and it's actually helped in 2 different communities that I've run, social posting and just conversations where two taglines or handles as such have become kind of go-to resources for local community to go and check on whether it's something that they should or shouldn't, kind of follow. But it's, as you say, it's having the story, it's building it up, and it's not about the hard sell. And the story that just the Sendible story, but the structure that you've given us today has added massive value. So I just want to thank you for going through that in such detail, because I wasn't expecting you to give us specific examples and structure which people can now take away and go and implement, and then order those cards. Those cards will make a massive difference, I believe, anyway. Is there anything else that you feel from a storytelling perspective people need to remember when it comes to telling their stories?
Probably the easiest framework would be the ABT framework. So if you just remember ABT, which is and, but, therefore, right? If you just use that framework, that's the one piece of advice I'll leave you with. That's the simplest way to tell a story. So you write your initial line, then you say and, something else happened, then but, this happened, therefore, here's what I've learned of the solution. So and, but, therefore is the simplest way to tell a story. I would say if you guys use that initially in your social media posts, you'll start to see results. I would say try learn writing skills, copywriting, that kind of thing is a good skill to have right now. Even if you're doing video, just write a brief script is really powerful. So Copywriter's Handbook is it's a really good book that I recommend on copywriting and structuring your content for social media. There's a chapter on social media writing. But yeah, I would say use video where you can, authentic video, short videos. work really well, like 2 minutes or less for social media. Tell your story that way. But again, always start with a problem. Pose a problem in every post if you can, and then use the ABT framework. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got some really, really simple tools that we can take away, but we can go and impact that straight after this video, and hopefully go and make an impact on our own social media. Gavin, I want to thank you so much, man. I didn't realize we were going to cover so much, and so many different points, or have so many interesting web challenges. But bottom line, I just want to thank you very much for sharing your time today. I know how busy you are and running a massive team around the world, but now I can see why. And thank you for letting us into your world.
Well, thanks for having me on, Mac.
Excellent. Is there anything else or any other way that you want people to reach out should they want to connect with you, specifically, or with Sendible? I know we're going to be posting some links.
Just find me on LinkedIn as Gavin Hammar, or on Twitter, Gavin Hammar. Probably the best place to find me. Or you can email me directly if you have questions, just gavin@sendible.com. Happy to take your emails and help you out.
Brave man. Excellent stuff. Well, Gavin, thank you so much, man. I'm looking forward to sharing this with everybody, and the content that you've shared today has been invaluable. I'm very, very excited to see what it's going to do for people out there. So much appreciated.
Cool. Thanks, Mac. Cheers.
Cheers.